debate right now. She will also join us soon. Now I understand the microphone was switched on, so sorry for those in the live stream who might not yet heard me speaking before. So we are in this very special event, and colleagues in the European Parliament will join us a bit later, those who are in the plenary debate active right now at this very moment of time. It means a lot to me, since I have mentioned Assita Kanko from the Conservative group, that also Petras Austrevicius from the Liberal group here in the European Parliament is with us tonight, as well as from all the other central groups, at least here in the European Parliament. We have visitors and many are connected via the live stream, since this is a multi-partisan and a cross-border issue in our European Union. Assita Kanko will later take over the moderation, and Alice Teodorescu will speak final remarks in the end of today's commemoration event, which is meant to last until 7 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, excellencies, visiting relatives of hostages, Rabbi Abraham Cooper from California. A few days after the October 7 attacks last year, a diplomat friend of mine, Israeli diplomats, said to me, "It's good that Israel has friends now, but you will see Israel will need friends in 3 months from now." And unfortunately, she was exactly right. As we can see within Europe and in other parts of the Western world, in other parts of the world actually, there is increasing anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. But what we also can see is that Israel resists the various attacks of various different kinds from various different proxies of the Iranian Mullah regime. Today, the European Parliament, as mentioned, the debate is ongoing on the commemoration of these attacks. And in the very beginning of this whole plenary week, the President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola, has just spoken especially for the immediate release of the hostages and especially for all efforts towards de-escalation, as she called it. And as I have mentioned, the cross-border and multi-partisan nature of this very commemoration event, it's also a cross-border event when it comes to Europe and the rest of the world, since we have with us Abraham Cooper, who will be introduced properly by Alice Teodorescu a bit later. But what I want to share with you, what impressed me much, and what I always kept on my mind after I met him first, is that among many other things, Rabbi Abraham Cooper has introduced training against anti-Semitism for the Californian police, which doubtlessly is an important task to undertake. And it's a good example of how to fight anti-Semitism on each and every level, in each and every field, in each and every respect, no matter whether it's in the streets of California or in the form of anti-Zionism against the State of Israel. We will also hear from Elnet today, and I thank Elnet for supporting today's event. We will hear from the Coming Home Soon campaign, or better to say, you already can see on your tables, at least many of you, books from the Coming Home Soon initiative. These are individual books for individual hostages, meant to convey messages from people who would write down their messages into these books, and the books are meant to be handed over to these hostages after their release. The initiators of this initiative will present it a bit later, more in detail. Just want to make one more remark content-wise. As I can see, Alice Teodorescu just came from the plenary debate on the commemoration to this room. I will hand over the floor to her in a second. I just want to say one important thing that seems to be very important, at least to me, that today's event, today's commemoration, this very day, October 7, is not only about politics. It's deeper and it's more elementary when it comes to values. It's about dignity and it's about our civilization. So this is the one dimension, not only politics, but deeper, more elementary, more about dignity and civilization. And the second dimension, in my view, and this is what we must not forget about today, but rather think in full depth about, it's about individuals. It's about those individuals who suffered, who were killed today, a year ago, whose lives were taken from one second to the other by terrorists in the largest massacre against Jewish people since the Shoah, the Holocaust. And this is what we commemorate today. And we must not forget that these very same terrorists are after all of us, after each and everybody who holds up the values of democracy, rule of law, human dignity, individual freedom. So we are in this together. Or, as my colleague in the Austrian Parliament, Martin Engelberg, said it nearly a year ago in the Austrian Parliament, as it was also quoted from many years before, when there was a different terrorist attack in Paris. Je suis Israel, Martin Engelberg said. We are all Israel, and we are in this together, defending civilization and commemorating the victims. Having said that, I hand over to Alice Teodorescu, who will make some initial remarks and then hand over to the next points on our agenda. I look forward especially to the commemoration speech of Petras Austrevicius and the keynote speech of Rabbi Abraham Cooper. And during this event, I will be among the ones who go to the plenary debate, and then I will be back here, but the event will always be taken care of one of the hosts, Alice Teodorescu, and me. Thank you again for joining.
Thank you, Lukas. Dear colleagues and distinguished guests, it is with a heavy heart and a profound sense of duty that we gather here today to commemorate the tragic events of October 7th. This day will be forever etched in our collective memory as a dark chapter in the history of Israel and the Jewish people. More Jews were killed on October 7th than on any day since the Holocaust. The massacre on this day was not only a sadistic attack on innocent lives, but also an attack on the very existence and sovereignty of the State of Israel. This evening, we stand in solidarity with the people of Israel, the families who lost their loved ones, and all those who continue to endure the pain and trauma of the brutal terrorism. Our gathering today is a testament to our unwavering support for Israel's right to safety and security. I would like to emphasize that Israel, like every state, has not only the right, but the duty to keep its citizens safe. And therefore, Israel should now do everything in its might to bring all the hostages home. As a mother myself, I cannot begin to imagine the pain of those who had their children torn away from them and held hostage under unimaginable conditions. The thought of any child, terrified, far away from safety of the parents, deprived of the love and protection that they deserve, is unbearable. Lacking food, beds, healthcare, and love, held by terrorists in dark tunnels. This is their reality. For the organization responsible, it is Hamas who is responsible. We cannot accept anything else than elimination. As long as Hamas operates in the Middle East, there can be no safety in Israel, no two-state solution, and no lasting peace. Israel's efforts to eliminate Hamas and Hezbollah effectively led to a significant weakening of Iran. This is, of course, important for the region, but also for the rules-based order that Iran, alongside Russia and China, seeks to undermine. In other words, Israel's struggle is very much the West's struggle too. It is a consequence of the West's failure to exert enough pressure on the forces that wish to destroy their democratic neighbor, because in Iran's eyes, any sovereign state that rests on democracy, human rights, and tolerance is a threat to the totalitarian reflexes of the theocracy. Today, we are privileged to have relatives of hostages with us, whose strength and determination to bring their loved ones home safely inspire us all. Their stories are a powerful reminder of the urgent need for us to do everything within our power to ensure the safe return of these innocent victims. We must stand united, not only in remembrance, but also in resolute support of Israel's legitimate security concerns. I want to thank my colleague, Lukas Mandl, who disappeared, for co-hosting this event, as well as all of our distinguished guests and partners. Thank you so much. Thank you. And by that, I will welcome Petras Austrevicius for the remembrance speech. Thank you.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, in particular, family members of hostages in Israel. Today here, in the European Parliament, we commemorate a very sad and tragic anniversary. 1 year ago, an inhuman crime was committed when Hamas and its supporters attacked Israel and its people in the very early hours of 7th of October. The terrorist attack has already claimed more than 1,139 lives, and 101 people are still being held hostage in the worst possible conditions. The methodological brutality with which Hamas terrorists killed unarmed civilians at the Supernova Musical Festival or in many kibbutzim has become the signature of Hamas and has confirmed the nature of its activities. Hamas is a terrorist organization, and its hostility to humanity is a threat to the whole civilized world. Islamic fundamentalists have created evil organizations that unfortunately continue their criminal activities even today. Today, we honor the innocent victims who, on the morning of 7th of October, were still enjoying their lives, interacting with their families and friends, and making plans for the future. Afterwards, many of the victims have experienced harassment, torture, rape, and the other crimes that are difficult to comprehend. It is particularly painful to note that some of the victims were yesterday's acquaintances, co-workers, and neighbors. Blind cruelty became the main feature of the crimes of 7th October. Israeli President Herzog recently described the past year as a period of horror. This is especially obvious when one considers the fate of almost 250 hostages. This is a very special crime by Hamas, carefully prepared. The hundreds of hostages were intended to cause their families and loved ones prolonged and unbearable pain. The recorded images of the hostage-taking condemned the relative to a long period of uncertainty, anxiety, and physical and psychological trauma. With highest respect to the killed and dead hostages, with sympathy for their families, we must continue to fight for the remaining 101 hostages. Admittedly, Hamas will not release them without a fight, and therefore Hamas must be defeated. Hamas hiding behind civilians, the stories of atrocities suffered by the freed hostages only confirm that the best and only outcome is a victory over Hamas and other evil organizations. Hamas has taken all the civilians of Gaza hostage, depriving them of any hope for a different future as well. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we mark a very sad anniversary in modern history, but we must learn the lessons of this tragedy and not to allow to repeat it. We cannot afford to act irresponsibly while the forces of the axis of evil continue to operate. The superiority of today's civilization will only remain if our words to do not differ from our actions. I thank you all for your attention to this strategy and invite you to continue to work together for a future without dates like 7th of October. Thank you.
And then I would like to welcome our keynote address by Rabbi Abraham Cooper from Simon Wiesenthal Center. Welcome.
Distinguished elected officials, dearest families of the hostages, dear friends from Israel and across Europe, 878 civilians were murdered 1 year ago in southern Israel on October 7th, 1 year ago today. It was the largest number of Jews killed in a single day since the Nazi Holocaust. On that Chag, that festival of Simchat Torah, one of the most joyous days in the Jewish calendar, on that Shabbat morning, Hamas terrorists, trained, armed, and supported by the genocide-seeking Iranian regime, slaughtered 578 men, 300 women, 53 children, 4 children under the age of 3, 2 between the ages of 3 and 5, not to mention those who were grievously injured. On that single day, 921 Jewish orphans were created. A few saw both of their parents tortured and killed. 119 Jewish parents living in Israeli communities adjacent to Gaza witnessed their loved ones, including children killed before their eyes in their own homes. The peaceful Nova Festival was turned into a charnel house. Killings, rapes, mutilations, kidnappings, and hostage-taking of all ages and nationalities. Alive and dead, taken back to the underground tunnels that crisscrossed Gaza, some to be bartered for Palestinian terrorists held in Israel, others executed, many sexually abused. Some 50 of the over 100 hostages still held 1 year later are believed to still be alive, barely alive. We mourn our dead. We pray for the living. We demand that all, each and every one of the living and the dead be returned to their families immediately. But the central question this evening, October 7th, is how October 8th and beyond was possible. How could it be that the civilized world, the leading international agencies, the leading NGOs devoted to protecting women, all saw pure evil in almost real time and blinked, shut their eyes altogether, or even denied the horrific truth? Yes, from October 8th onwards, denial of the very crimes the perpetrators memorialized and live-streamed from their iPhones became suddenly a plausible, even acceptable narrative. Denial of the brutal killings the thugs had joyously boasted of to their parents in phone calls just the day before. Denial of the beatings of newly arrived hostages in Gaza City by frenzied crowds of civilians, celebrated on video and online and in social media, video after video. How, in God's name, was it possible to deny on October 8th what the world witnessed on October 7th? And how did Hamas know that such a strategy would work? And to what end? What purpose? The clues to the power of denial trace back to the last century, to history's greatest crime, the Nazi Holocaust. For if you can deny the Shoah, you can deny anything. Arthur Butts was an associate professor of engineering at the prestigious Northwestern University in Chicago, Illinois, in the 1970s and 80s. He was also a denier of the Holocaust. His infamous book, The Hoax of the 20th Century, led to an interview at CNN Studios. During that interview, the journalists showed him footage of the death camps and of atrocities taken by the Germans themselves. And the broadcaster challenged him. How can you deny Auschwitz? He demanded. Butts's response revealed an important truth. I don't believe there were gas chambers because I'm more comfortable believing they didn't exist, Butts responded. Butts's denial of the Shoah and the mainstream media platform he and other deniers gained access to planted the seeds and pointed the way to utilizing denial as a weapon. Neo-Nazis and other anti-Semites reveled in the opportunity to paint every Holocaust survivor as a serial liar and thief. Every paper trail implicating a Nazi war criminal denounced as a Cold War forgery. Every one of the martyred 6 million Jews reduced to part of history's greatest hoax. But beyond anti-Semitic tropes, weaponized denial of the Shoah also became precursors of future atrocities. In 1991, as the Soviet Union was on life support, I was visited in my Moscow hotel by an aging Soviet Jew. He handed me a yellowing and faded paperback booklet, about 100 pages or so, that listed all of the Soviet Jews who had earned the coveted Order of Lenin, the highest recognition for valor in the epic war to defeat Hitler's Germany. He explained that that list led to the murder, ordered by Joseph Stalin, of a Jewish historian who compiled the information. And in the aftermath of World War II, Stalin understood that the incredible but generally unknown contribution of Soviet Jews to the victory over the Nazis had to be suppressed. Why? I asked. Because Stalin was planning to do away with the Jews after World War II. And this kind of information would have created positive feelings among the citizens of the Soviet Union towards them. History has taught us that, in fact, it was only Stalin's sudden death in 1953 that put an end to his genocidal plan against Soviet Jewry. In recent decades, the nefarious Iranian regime made Holocaust denial state policy. There were even cartoon contests rewarding the most ingenious poison pens, demonizing Jews dead and alive. The Holocaust was denied, but the Ayatollahs also flipped the narrative, accusing Israelis of being Nazis and promoting a vision that would one day seek to fulfill Hitler's dream of a Judenrein world. These hateful viruses found new life and massive audiences on today's social media, emerging as a staple for Jew hatred in many languages and in many cultures, including cultures that had very few Jews. The message underlying is, if your neighbors, if the Jews are indeed latter-day Nazis, they are a real threat and a legitimate target for vilification, violence, or worse. So denial of the Shoah can and has been weaponized and served as a precursor for more horrors built on the ashes of the past. Which brings us to one last example from the Shoah, one which I chose because of the distinguished audience tonight, of opinion makers, of lawgivers, of people who stand behind the law. When it came to the attacks on Jews in Germany and beyond, the Nazis made sure to deploy the rule of law to strip freedom, citizenship, education, domicile, to set in place isolation, and ultimately the removal of the Jew under the law. The very concept of justice was turned on its head. Simon Wiesenthal, the great Nazi hunter after whom our institution was named, often told me that one of the main reasons for his seeking trials against Nazi war criminals, including those who were responsible for the murder of hundreds of thousands of people, these trials that offered at best life sentences for mass murderers, was to try to begin a process to rehabilitate the fundamentals of justice in a world that almost saw it totally eradicated. I know that Mr. Wiesenthal would have been proud to see all the tribunals of justice established to deal with genocides and crimes against humanity in Africa, Europe, and Asia. But since October 7th, the world again is witnessing the perversion of justice by courts at The Hague and elsewhere, by the ICC and the ICJ, politicized to demonize the Jewish state for the crime of striking back against Hamas. Guilty, but never named for its crimes against humanity. The spillover from the hijacking of human rights to denigrate the Jewish state has fueled full-blown anti-Semitism on both sides of the Atlantic, infected and legitimized by the inaction of the International Red Cross, by too many UN agencies and special rapporteurs, by human rights NGOs, and too many deliberations here on this continent. Thankfully, not in this building. The Jewish people will emerge from this darkest chapter since the Nazi Holocaust stronger and ready to face our future. But as for the United Nations, the EU, and European countries, here we are again in 2024, hearing again on the streets of Europe, death to the Jews, chants being made on your streets, and with authorities doing precious little to stem the tide of Jew hatred. In the end, we Jews cannot defeat anti-Semitism. Only our neighbors and the rule of law and mutual respect among all people can ever hope to defeat history's oldest hate. But know one thing, we Jews will overcome. We will persevere. And as for our European friends, doing nothing is a prescription for disaster. Doing nothing to combat anti-Semitism, to debunk it, to hold those accountable who carry it out, will serve, God forbid, as a precursor for a dark future no one wants to leave to our children. All of us here tonight, every Jew in this room, led by our friends from the State of Israel, we're committed to work with each and every one of you for a better future for all. In closing, it's kind of strange to quote Joseph Stalin twice in a speech, but Stalin has been quoted as saying the following, and if he didn't say it, unfortunately, he lived it. He said, "One death is a tragedy, 1,000,000 deaths a statistic." We have the amazing opportunity tonight, courtesy of Jewish activists who are here from Amsterdam, from Israel, from elsewhere, for each and every one of us to think about, one, of those people still held by Hamas, but not only think about them, not only write to them, but to take concrete action on their behalf. I cannot tell you how moved I was tonight, or earlier, I guess late this afternoon, you'll excuse me, I'm just flew in from LA, I'm not sure what time it is. But I watched as every single member of your august group stood and applauded the families of the victims and the hostages. It is a gesture that we will long hold dear to our hearts. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, and apologies for being late to this important meeting. We had a debate in the plenary about the remembrance of October 7, and I see that colleagues who were there are here now as well. Before introducing the families of hostages, I would like to make a very quick comment, just to remind, and I suppose we all agree here, that rape is not resistance, that crime is not resistance, kidnapping innocent people and killing them is not resistance. It is terrorism. Being Jew is not a crime, and Israel has a right to exist. Criticizing Hamas is not a crime. As member of European Parliament, we have the right to defend European values, and this is what we are going to continue doing. I see that many colleagues are here in the room. They are not in this room only today. Know that throughout the whole term, they have been supporting the rights of all people to live their lives and fighting anti-Semitism. I see Bertian Reisen, we have put the topic on the agenda several times. I see Bart Grotas, who also was fighting about what Iran was doing. And apologies, I don't say all the names, but I thank all the colleagues, and Lukas and Petras, everyone for getting us in this room together today, because it's very important that we come together today. And I would like to now introduce the families of the hostages, say that you are not alone, we stand with you. I would like to welcome, sorry if I don't pronounce the name correctly, forgive me in advance for that. I would like to welcome, I see on my list, Ilay David and Galia David, brother and mother of Eviata David. I would like to welcome Ailet Hakim, sister-in-law of Ohad Ben-Ami. On this table, please take the floor.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Ilay David, and I'm the brother of this handsome guy you see above me, or right next to me. I'm 27, and he's 23. I have also a younger sister, which is 19. And I like to think about being a big brother as the first assignment I've ever had, and I didn't choose that, but I take it very seriously. That's my mother right next to me, and she has to endure this torture for more than a year, which is unbearable. But somehow, because we know that Eviatar is alive, and because we know that there are so many other hostages still alive, more than 60 hostages still alive, we feel like we have no other privilege of giving up. And those innocent souls have to come home. They have to come home. Back to their families, back to their life, back to their friends. My brother is a very talented guitar player. He plays music since he's 12, and I miss a lot our time together playing music. I play the piano and he plays the guitar, and every time I hear somebody plays the guitar, it reminds me of him immediately, and I I have this picture in my mind when he comes back and we play music again. Eviatar went to the Nova Festival with his friends. 2 friends of him, when the attack started, they were killed on the spot. A beautiful boy and a girl who just celebrated their love, found their death. And 100 meters from the spot where they were killed, Eviatar and his childhood friend, Guy Gilboa Dalal, were abducted. They tried to hide, and a group of terrorists just took them and threw them inside a pickup truck, took them a horrifying way to Gaza. We didn't know back then what happened. We had, after the rocket attack, we ran to the bomb shelter and we tried to understand where Eviatar is, and he disappeared very quickly. So we had no idea what happened to him, and we tried to scan and search around the internet. Just imagine to yourself how it feels to understand that your brother is disconnected inside a massive terror attack, when you know that many are dead and many are kidnapped, and you cannot do nothing about it. You cannot do nothing. Around 2 p.m., my sister got a screenshot from a video, and that video was posted by Hamas via Telegram. They broadcasted all the atrocities they've made that day, and then we get 2 links to 2 different videos. In one of them, you can see my brother. He already lost his glasses. He went with his glasses. You can see that his shirt is torn. You can see that he's bounded with the hands behind his back. And the terrorist holding him while holding a gun in his other hand. My mother cannot watch this footage because it is so horrible to see. And in the second video, we saw 5 young men tied up inside a dark room, beaten, frightened. And you could see my brother's look in his eyes, which is pure primal fear. And I've never seen somebody that scared. And he just looked straight into the camera, piercing right through my soul. And after we felt like all the world is falling apart, we understood that he is alive. And since that moment, we feel like we wake up every day to October 7th or October 8th, because on October 8th we already knew that Eviatar is alive and kidnapped. And this anniversary for us doesn't mean a lot. But just thinking about my younger brother living under inhuman conditions with people that can kill him in an instant, at every moment, it kills me. It fills me with frustration and despair and fear and sadness and pain. And all I want him is to be back home, hugging my parents again. And we have no other choice as the leaders of the free world, as the representatives of this continent. I think you have a very big role trying to do whatever you can, not only advocating for these innocent people, but also acting. And after a year, I feel that there is much more work we can do. As we wait, people are dying, and that's my biggest fear, that eventually there will be nobody to save. I know my brother is coming back alive, I see it clearly when I go to bed, when I wake up. But we cannot do it alone. So again, thank you for listening, for being here, for hosting us. Thank you, Rabbi and Mandl, for hosting us. And I hope it will end soon.
Is anyone else taking the floor as well? I think you are taking the floor as well, so please put your microphone on.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I can't believe it's been a year since the 7th of October 2023. My name is Ayelet Hakim, and I'm 56 years old. I lived in Kibbutz Be'eri my whole life until the 7th of October last year. My sister Raz and her husband Ohad were kidnapped from their home in Kibbutz Be'eri on the morning of October 7th. My sister came back. My brother-in-law is still being held in Gaza. Please, please, help us bring him home. It's the only thing we wish for. The only thing we need is my brother-in-law to come back. Imagine your own father, brother, son, being held hostage for a year, a whole year, without knowing what happened to him. It's outrageous the way the world behaves, like there is nothing wrong with holding hostages. Hostages. Imagine if it was a member of your family, your daughter, your sister, just your mother. Just imagine, for one moment, how would you feel? Help us. Help us bring them home. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story and for coming here to speak about your family members. We are all aware that you want to have them back to laugh, and family is there to laugh with and also to fight with and then to laugh again. We really wish this to happen to you, and we will always stand by you, stand with you. I would like to now introduce Ehab Hino, who is the head of the European Parliament Department of Israeli Mission to EU and NATO, to speak.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, dear members. Lukas Mandl, Alice Teodorescu, Assita Kanko, Petras, members of the European Parliament that are attending here, Rabbi Abraham Cooper, thanks for coming. It's been a year since the horrific attack. And dear families, thank you, as the President said, President Metzola, thank you for your braveness and for taking this fight, for being here, for putting this on the table, because here in Europe, many have forgotten what happened on the 7th of October. And our job is to remind them what happened on the 7th of October. Our job is to remind them that our way is the right way. The hostages, as I will quote a former member of the European Parliament, Mr. David Lega, who said once in the plenary, from the river to the sea, all hostages must be free. It's been a year since kidnapping of kids, women, children, elders has been just normalized. It's just normal. 7th of October happened because, well, you know, there is occupation, there is something, and nobody can more look in the eye, looking straight to the problem that we're facing evil. It is truly unfortunate. But whomever thinks that the state of Israel will yield, will give up the hostages, is just on the wrong side of history. Because we won't give up, and we will continue fight for our country, for our citizen, for our hostages. I will take this opportunity, Mr. Mandl, if you allow me, to invite you all also to tomorrow's event to commemorate the 7th of October with President Metsola. Unfortunately, she couldn't attend this event here because of her schedule, so we're holding another event. The ambassador also will be here tomorrow. Again, thank you, members of the European Parliament, that truly understand the situation and see the truth. There's a clear truth to this horrific situation in the Middle East, and there are some members here that see through what's going on and know the truth about the Middle East. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I would like now to, thank you very much. I would like now to introduce Mr. Matthijs Schlusser from the European Leadership Network, ELNET, that has been raising awareness before October 7 happened. And I remember I went with you to Israel in 2021, and we could see from the border with Lebanon what was happening, and a soldier told us this is the border with Iran. I think today it's more clear than ever to everyone. I give you the floor.
Well, it's absolutely overwhelming, it's absolutely heartbreaking. The most important thing is to show solidarity with Israel, because at the moment there are a lot of false information and fake news are spread all over the world, and I wanted to see it myself. Talk to the victims, talk to the family members whose sons are still taken hostage. You can see all these houses, all these personal stuff, all these clothes, and this was just slaughtering of innocent people, and I will tell that story everywhere.
In all these containers, there are bodies of the victims of this massacre. It's hard to identify the bodies because some of them were burned, were smashed into pieces. There is no better expression than to say these are really crimes against humanity.
ELNET provides the realistic pictures and scenes what actually took place here. We're going to bring what we felt here from sincere talks with people, with the experts. We're going to bring these situations back home.
I think it is important for us to really open our eyes and the eyes of the civilized world to what has happened. It's not about the conflict between Palestinians and Israelis. It's about the fight really of those who love life and who love democracy and freedom against those who cherish death and murder and killing. It's the fight of all of us.
So thank you, Lukas Mandl, Assita Kanko, and Petras Austrevicius, Rabbi, representative from the missions, and of course the people who are very closely connected to family that is currently held hostage in Gaza, for giving me also the opportunity to say a couple of words. My name is Matthijs Schlusser, and I'm the director of ELNET in Brussels. ELNET is a non-partisan policy organization with offices in Brussels, Berlin, London, Paris, Rome, Warsaw, and Tel Aviv that works to strengthen relations between Israel and Europe based on shared democratic values and mutual strategic interest by promoting political and diplomatic cooperation and dialogue to strategic dialogue, seminars, conferences, and delegations. Since the 7th of October, we brought more than 300 members of parliament from across the EU, but also from this house, to Israel to see with their own eyes what the atrocities were that were committed by Hamas. MEP Lukas Mandl and also MEP Petras Austrevicius were one of the first to join us on one of those missions within 2 weeks after the 7th of October. The first week after the 2nd of October, we already had the first group of members of the French Parliament in Israel. Why is this important? It's important because people need to see with their own eyes what the situation is on the ground. and they need to be reminded of what is going on, what Ehab Hino also said. 101 hostages are still not home. Organizing delegations has always been one of our core activities, and we will continue to do that. Israel is now surrounded by a ring of fire. Iran and its proxies are doing everything to destabilize the region. They are part of a greater coalition that includes Russia, that feel less and less deterred by our Western alliance. Since the 7th of October, over 400 rockets, mostly ballistic, were fired directly by Iran in 2 unprecedented occasions on Israel. Not a terrorist organization, but a sovereign state. Hamas fired approximately 13,200 missiles on Israel. Hezbollah has launched 12,400 attacks on Israel. At this moment, about 70,000 Israelis cannot return to their homes because of that in the north of Israel since the 7th of October. 180 attacks were launched from Yemen by the Houthis and 60 attacks from Syria. Imagine if this was your country. I just arrived from a conference that we hosted in Brussels this morning to commemorate the 7th of October. Vice President of the European Commission, Vera Jourova, spoke and said that the war is not only fought in Israel, but it's also present here in Europe. Strongly condemning the enormous increase in anti-Semitism, but also anti-Zionism. Following October 7th, Europe has shown unprecedented support for Israel. That's also important to say. All major European leaders visited Israel in solidarity, among them the President of the European Commission, von der Leyen, and also the President of this House, Roberta Metsola. This House has passed several very strong and unprecedented resolutions calling for the unconditional release of all hostages, condemning Hamas and supporting Israel's right to defend itself. Another resolution addressing Iran's aggression and calling for the designation of the IRGC to finally be added to the EU list of terrorist organizations. These messages have not gone unnoticed. In Israel, and on behalf of ELNet, I want to thank all of you, all members of Parliament, for your important and continuous work that you have been doing on this topic. I hope we will be able to continue to work together and to strengthen the relations between Israel and Europe based on the shared democratic values and the mutual strategic interests that we share. But most of all, I wish for the safe and unconditional return of all the hostages. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthijs. I would like now to give the floor to Coming Home Soon Initiative. I would like to introduce them, Imbar Hassan, Leslie de Swan Meyers, and Karen Padovic van Leeuwen to share quickly with us about their initiative. Thank you.
I would like to read a message from the book of Eviatar David. Dear Eviatar, although we've never met and likely wouldn't have in normal times, I want you and your family to know that we think of you, love you, and are all waiting for your return home. Our hearts are broken, but we still have hope. Be strong. Hold on, and support those around you, just as we support each other here. Like you, I've played guitar all my life. There are things that only music can heal. And you hold the key to that magical door. Yours, with love, Erel Agmon, London.
Message in the book of Ohad Ben Ami. These were Ohad Ben Ami's last words on WhatsApp before he was taken. Shema Yisrael, a prayer in Judaism used in significant moments in life or in times of danger. Shema Yisrael, they're here, we're caught in a trap. Are you there, Ohad? Do you hear our prayers, alive somewhere in the sound of silence? Do you still have the strength to hold on? Or did they take your faith, your body, and your soul? Shema Yisrael, they're here, a cry that echoes deep, a prayer for strength, for in faith his soul to keep. Please hold on, dear Ohad, please survive. Shema Yisrael, please stay alive. With heartfelt sympathy and all my love, Sharon from Amsterdam.
Dear hosts, thank you for initiating this event. Thank you to everyone who's here today. Thank you, dear families, also for you, a big, big thank you for your strength in coming here to fight the obvious, the freedom of your loved ones. We never imagined that we would be here today after such an unbearable and long year, and for that we are deeply sorry. When we started Coming Home Soon at the end of October 2023, we realized that with so many hostages, each person was only known as one of the 250. We felt that the overwhelming scale made it actually hard to emotionally connect. By shifting attention to the individual stories, we hope to elevate awareness, connection, and support.
At the heart of our project are personal books, one for each hostage, and each book tells their story. People from all around the world can share messages of support through the physical books and into the website of Coming Home Soon. We have two main goals. First one, support the advocacy efforts by helping people understand that this is not about politics. It's an urgent humanitarian crisis. And we know that only when all hostages are back home, we can begin a courageous dialogue for a new future in the region. Second goal is to show the families and returned hostages emotional support through messages of hope, love, and solidarity. The physical and emotional act of standing in front of a blank page in a hostage book has a powerful impact. It forces you to relate to them as a person. It really makes you humble. When someone leaves a message and signs their name underneath, they actually join us in signing a contract of humanity.
We have exhibited this project dozens of times across 12 countries to thousands of people. And each time we're amazed how little people know about the hostages, and also by how important it's to share their personal stories, to humanize the humanitarian crisis. We draw our strength and motivation to continue from the families, and we promise we will not stop until Ohad, Eviatar, and every last person is back home. As women, we cannot ignore the suffering of the women still held captive. These are Valentine's Day messages from 3 sisters to their sisters in captivity. It's painful just to imagine their craving for love.
We feel a deep connection to the innocent lives still trapped, babies, women, elderly, and men. We've all seen the devastating footage of how they were cruelly taken, and we've heard the heartbreaking stories of the women who returned after enduring unspeakable torture and rape. We must act now to bring all remaining 101 hostages back home to their families. We, the women of Coming Home Soon, need your help by sharing our message. We are ready to go anywhere, anytime, to support all efforts for the release of the hostages. Today, we invite you to write a message in the books in front of you as a way to remind the hostages and their families that they will not be forgotten. If you are joining us by Zoom, please leave your message at Coming Home Soon online. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks to each and everybody taking the floor today, sharing thoughts, sharing insights, making a dignified event, this commemoration event, which will be concluded before Madame Teodorescu and me will say final remarks by a prayer and a moment of silence with Rabbi Abraham Cooper. Before I properly introduce the rabbi, which I couldn't do since I was in the plenary for a few minutes before because I had to be there, I want to in particular thank the interpreters for staying a bit longer today, at least those who do that. They are not obliged to do it for this very special occasion. Rabbi Abraham Cooper from Los Angeles, USA, is Simon Wiesenthal Center Global Advocate, who helped found the center in 1977. Furthermore, he is the immediate past chairman of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, and I guess it will be the right conclusion of our commemoration event today to have a prayer with the rabbi and a moment of silence. Rabbi, the floor is yours.
The truth is, we don't really need the interpreters for this part of the program. While the words are in Hebrew, I think everyone here who's ever heard of the Psalms or chanted in a time of need will understand. And we have a saying in Hebrew, Dvarim hayotzim min halev nichnasim el halev. Words from the heart penetrate the heart. But nonetheless, I want to read one chapter from King David's Psalms that synagogues around the world every day, 3 times a day, are chanting for the safe return of your loved ones. Shir HaMa'alot Esainai El Harim Me'ayin Yavo Ezri. A song of ascension. I lift up mine eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. That help will come from the good Lord. Al yitein lamod raglecha, al yanum shomrecha. Hinei lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Our God neither sleeps nor slumbers as he protects his people. Adonai shomrecha, God protects you. Adonai tzilcha yad minecha, he stands and casts a shadow by your right arm. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yarech balayla, not the brutal heat of the sun, nor the small light of the moon will be able to smite you. Adonai yishmacha mikol ra yishmor et nafshecha. God will protect our brothers and sisters from evil and safeguard their humanity, their dignity, and their soul. Adonai yishmor et seitcha uvoecha me'ata v'ad olam. May God bless everyone in this room with all you do from when you leave this room and when you come home to your loved ones, from today and forever. I'm going to read one other prayer we now say every day. I heard earlier today, I saw it actually, that someone from Al Jazeera who has 2 million followers, he celebrated October 7th by saying that October 7th had redeemed the Ummah had brought together the Muslim believers, the acts of October 7th redeemed the Ummah, redeemed their spiritual or nation, if you will. So I want to share with you a different insight. It's an insight, Mandl saw. We were just meeting for the first time, a couple of Jews, and finding immediate connections. This is what we say every day now. Achenu, our brothers and sisters, Kol Beit Yisrael, Hanutunim b'tzara uvashivya, Jews who are in deep trouble, who are suffering from anti-Semitism, who are being held captive, ha'omdin bein bayam uvein bayabasha, scattered around the world. Hamakom yirachem alehem, may God take mercy on each of them. V'yotziei mitzara l'irvacha, and remove them from the suffering. May afela la'ora, from darkness to light. Mishibud l'geula, from enslavement to redemption. Hashta bagala v'zban kariv, v'nomar amen. This is a short prayer that was probably written in the Middle Ages. So this short prayer talks about Jews who are being held hostage. We have faced these challenges in every generation and across continents. We have found throughout our history that these horrible events bring Jews closer, because the first word of this prayer, Achenu, brothers and sisters. We pray for our brothers and sisters, our family, and we pray for the amazing brothers and sisters we have in this august body. May they be redeemed in the coming days, and let us say amen.
Amen. The Rabbi just handed over to me the responsibility to introduce the moment of silence. So first I thank the Rabbi. Secondly, I suggest that Alice Teodorescu, my new colleague, whom I thank for being co-chair for this event today, and me will say a few final remarks now. And then we really conclude the event with standing and a moment of silence. Before I hand over to you and introduce the moment of silence, then I only want to make two remarks, rather technical but important. There was a lot of thanks already today, and it's important to thank each other and to remain related. But who was not yet thanked is Daniel Schuster from the Simon Wiesenthal Center, who has contributed management-wise a lot to today's event. I want to thank him explicitly, and also my staffer Michael Duschanek, who has made it happen that we have this today. And the second remark is I want to remind you again of what Ihab already said, that tomorrow's commemoration event at 5:30 p.m. with the President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola herself, in this very parliament, in the Zone Canal, as it is called, 5:30 p.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, October 8th. It will be good also to show there that we remain aware each and every day for the rest of our lives of what has happened. Alice?
Yes, I would only like to thank you for coming and for standing up for humanity and dignity in a moment when so many people, also in this house, are looking away or trying to find excuses. And it's important to not only talk in this moment, but also to act. There are a lot of things we can do as friends of the Jewish people, We have a certain responsibility in Europe, and we all need to take that responsibility by acting and by saying to those who are trying to hijack also this day that it's not acceptable. Thank you for coming.
And now let's stand to honor the victims with a moment of silence.